Rain tapped against the window as I sat in the dimly lit living room, whiskey swirling in my glass. The glow from the street lamp outside flickered, casting shadows across the hardwood floor. My fingers tightened around the tumbler as I glanced at the clock. Midnight. She wasn't home. Again. The scent of her perfume still lingered in the air from when she had left hours earlier, promising she'd be back soon. That same tired excuse. I used to believe her, used to trust every word that left those deceitful lips. Now, doubt clawed at my chest, whispering ugly truths I refused to acknowledge. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, a message from an unknown number. My pulse pounded as I picked it up. A single image filled the screen. My wife, draped over another man in a dimly lit hotel bar. Her smile, wide, sultry, wasn't for me. It was for him. I exhaled slowly, shoving the boiling rage down before it consumed me. That wasn't shock tightening my grip on the phone. It was confirmation. I had suspected for months, but now, undeniable proof stared back at me. She had thought she was careful, thought she was safe. Leaning back against the couch, I let out a humorless chuckle. Betrayal had a taste, bitter and cold. My mind raced, weighing every option. Confrontation, revenge. 1,000 scenarios played out, each darker than the last. But then something unexpected happened. My phone vibrated again. A second photo. This time she wasn't just sitting with him. She was pressed against him in the elevator, lips inches from his ear, fingers curled around his tie. Lust burned in her eyes. I had seen that look before, on our wedding night. I set the glass down, jaw tightening. Someone wanted me to see this. Someone wanted me to know. But who? Rising from the couch, I grabbed my keys. Sitting here, stewing in rage, wasn't an option. If she thought I'd be the fool waiting at home, she was wrong. The drive downtown felt longer than usual, every traffic light stretching time into an unbearable loop. I knew exactly where she was. That hotel had been her excuse before. Just a drink with friends, she had claimed. Lies. Pulling into the parking garage, I killed the engine and sat in silence. My heartbeat drummed in my ears as I scrolled through the messages once more. No name, no words, just evidence of betrayal. Whoever sent these wanted me to act. I stepped out, cool air biting my skin as I approached the entrance. The lobby was lavish, chandeliers casting golden light over the marble floors. My eyes scanned the area, landing on the bar tucked away in the corner. There she was. Her laughter rang out, melodic, intoxicating. His hand rested on her thigh, fingers teasing the hem of her dress. Fury coiled in my gut, but I forced my steps to remain steady as I walked closer. She didn't see me, too wrapped up in her fantasy, too blinded by desire. I could have grabbed her wrist, made a scene, shattered her illusion of secrecy, but I didn't. Instead, I turned away, pulling out my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen. I could call her, watch her scramble for a lie. But something told me to wait, to let her dig her own grave. The elevator doors slid open and I stepped inside, pressing the button for the top floor. The suite. That's where they were going next. My heart pounded as I reached the hallway, standing in the shadows as I watched them stumble out, lips locked, hands desperate. I pulled out my phone again, this time dialing. Not her, someone else. Someone who would make sure she never forgot this night. A deep voice answered after the first ring. Yeah? I need you to come to the Grand Regency. Now. A pause. You sure? I watched as my wife disappeared behind the door, blissfully unaware of what was coming. Absolutely. The hallway felt colder than it should have. My pulse hammered as I leaned against the wall, fingers tightening around my phone. The door she had vanished behind was just a few feet away, and inside she was giving herself to another man. My wife, my partner. The woman who had once sworn fidelity in front of God, family, and friends. I could still turn back, walk away, let her believe she had gotten away with it. But the thought of her smug smile, the way she'd come home later pretending she hadn't been defiled in another man's arms, made my stomach churn. No, I wouldn't let this slide. The elevator chimed behind me. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. "You really want to do this?" The deep voice belonged to the man I had called, an old friend, a cop. Turning, I met his sharp gaze. Detective Adrian Vance, someone who had seen the worst of people and still managed to keep his hands clean. I wasn't sure if I could say the same for myself. I nodded. "I'm sure," he sighed, rubbing his jaw before glancing at the hotel room door. "What's the play?" "She's in there with him." I swallowed hard. I want her to feel what I felt. I want her to know she's not untouchable. A flicker of understanding crossed his face. "You're not asking me to kick in the door, are you?" "Not yet," I muttered, my fingers clenching into fists. "He's got a wife, too." Vance raised a brow. "You sure?" I smirked, pulling out my phone and showing him another picture, one I had saved weeks ago. The man, her lover, standing beside a stunning brunette with a ring on her finger. I did my homework. Vance exhaled through his nose. "You always were thorough." He took out his own phone. "I'll make a call." I turned back to the door, listening. Faint moans slipped through the walls. My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat. My fingers itched to grab the handle, storm in and rip them apart. But patience was a virtue. I had waited this long. A few more minutes wouldn't kill me. Vance spoke quietly into his phone, then hung up. "Her name's Olivia. I told her everything." I could almost hear the chaos about to unfold. Olivia wasn't the type to handle betrayal with quiet dignity. No, she'd make sure the whole world knew what kind of man her husband truly was. The minutes crawled by. The elevator dinged again. A woman stepped out, dark hair wild around her shoulders, fury burning in her green eyes. Olivia. She marched toward us, fists clenched, jaw tight. "Where is he?" Her voice was sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. I gestured to the door. "Inside, with my wife." Her nostrils flared. "Open it." Vance didn't hesitate. He knocked hard, authority ringing through the sound. "Hotel security," he called. "Open up." Silence. Then hurried whispers, scrambling movements. A few seconds later, the door cracked open. My wife's flushed face appeared, her expression shifting from confusion to horror when she saw me standing there. What are you doing here?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Checking in on my wife." Behind her, the man fumbled to pull his shirt back on. Olivia's eyes locked on him, and the storm broke. "You lying piece of garbage." She shoved past my wife, slapping him hard across the face. "You think I wouldn't find out?" The man staggered back, stunned. "Olivia, baby, I can explain." "Don't you dare call me that." Her voice rose to a shriek. "You disgusting, cheating bastard." My wife turned back to me, panic creeping into her features. "I can explain." I tilted my head. "Really?" "Because I'd love to hear it." She opened her mouth, but before she could spew out another lie, Vance stepped forward. "You both need to get dressed. We're taking a little trip downtown." The color drained from her face. "What? Why?" Vance's smirk was almost amused. "Turns out, your boy toy here has been committing a little something called financial fraud, and you, sweetheart, have been helping him cover it up." She swayed, gripping the door frame. "No, no, I didn't." Olivia let out a cold laugh. "Oh, you did. And guess what? He's been doing the same thing to you, lying, stealing, using you just like he used me." My wife's eyes darted to the man, her lover. the man she had risked everything for. He looked just as terrified as she did. Vance gestured to the door. "Get dressed. Now." She hesitated, then did as she was told. I stood in the doorway, watching as my wife realized, too late, that she had lost everything. She had thought she was safe. She wasn't. The room smelled of sweat, perfume, and deceit. My wife hurried to gather her clothes, trembling hands fumbling with buttons, zippers, and fabric, as if dressing quickly would erase the damage. It wouldn't. Her lover, Nathan, as Olivia had spat his name, stood frozen, pale, and defeated. His gaze flickered between the door and the window, like a cornered animal searching for an escape. There wasn't one. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. "You look nervous, Nathan," I said casually. "Not so confident now, huh?" His jaw tightened. "Screw you." Olivia let out a bitter laugh. "That's rich, coming from a guy who's been screwing everything but his own wife." Vance stepped forward, all business. "Enough. Both of you are coming with us, unless, of course, you'd prefer we make a scene and have hotel security escort you out in cuffs." My wife's lips parted, then shut again. She was searching for a way out, for some last-minute lie that could rewrite the ending she'd scripted for herself. But there wasn't one. I tilted my head. "Go ahead, sweetheart. Try and talk your way out of this. I'd love to hear what excuse you've got left." Her shoulders squared, and for a brief second, I saw the woman I had married, the one who could charm, manipulate, and sweet-talk her way through anything. "I didn't know," she said, voice shaking but steady. "I didn't know he was involved in anything illegal. This isn't what you think." Olivia scoffed. "Oh, please, you're not just a cheater, you're a liar, too." My wife's eyes darted to mine, pleading. "I was lonely, okay? You were always busy, always distant. I needed something, and Nathan was there." A cold laugh escaped me. "So it's my fault?" "I'm not saying that," she snapped, but the defensive edge in her voice betrayed her. "I'm saying I made a mistake." I stepped closer. "No, a mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. You made a choice." Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. Vance clapped his hands together. "Enough. Let's move." Nathan finally spoke, voice low and desperate. "You don't have anything on me," Vance smirked. "That's funny, because your accounts say otherwise. Offshore transfers, false business claims, embezzlement." He tisked. "Oh, and let's not forget the little detail of fraudulently putting properties under my friend's wife's name." He nodded toward me. Nathan's head whipped toward her, betrayal flickering across his face. "You told them?" She shook her head violently. "No, I swear It doesn't matter," Vance cut in. "We've got enough to hold you both. Now get moving." Nathan hesitated, but one glare from Olivia sent him trudging forward. My wife followed, shoulders hunched, a defeated shell of the woman she had once been. As we walked toward the elevators, she turned to me, voice barely a whisper. "Please, don't let them take me." I met her gaze, but there was no pity left in me. "You made your bed," I said. "Now lie in it." The elevator doors slid shut, and just like that, she was gone. The house felt empty without her. For years, this place had been filled with laughter, love. At least, that's what I had believed. Now, silence pressed against the walls, heavy and unrelenting. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, staring at the perfectly made bed. It looked untouched, like the past never happened, like betrayal hadn't seeped into the sheets. Except it had. My wife had spent the night in a holding cell. Nathan, too. Vance had sent me an update early in the morning. Charges were being filed, and Olivia had wasted no time dragging her husband's name through the mud. Publicly. She had money, power, and a well-connected lawyer who was making sure Nathan suffered. I didn't feel sorry for him. As for my wife, she had called, repeatedly. Voicemails stacked up, her voice morphing from desperate to apologetic to furious. The latest one played as I sipped my coffee. "You think you're so righteous? You set me up. You wanted this. Well, congratulations, you ruined my life. But guess what? I'm not done. You'll regret this, I swear." I deleted the message with a flick of my thumb. Ruined her life? No, she had done that on her own. I had simply let her face the consequences. A knock on the door broke my thoughts. Vance stood on the porch, sunglasses shielding his eyes from the morning sun. He held up a folder. "Thought you'd want to see this." I took it, flipping it open. Inside were legal documents, evidence, and something else. Divorce papers. "That fast?" I asked. He shrugged. "Olivia's lawyer had some contacts. It'll be messy, but you'll walk away clean." I glanced at the papers, then at him. "And her?" Vance leaned against the railing. "She's looking at serious charges. Nathan threw her under the bus to save his own skin. Classic." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Figures." Vance studied me for a moment. "You good?" I exhaled. Was I? The rage had faded, the grief dulled. All that remained was a quiet certainty. I would be fine. I looked out at the street where the world carried on as if nothing had happened. "Yeah," I said, signing my name on the dotted line. "I am now.